I am super excited to say that the only reason I am able to even come out with this episode is the sponsor of today's episode. So, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it is one of the greatest things to use to make a podcast. First, it's free. Second, they have all these tools that you can use to record, edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. I do it from my phone because it's much easier. I literally just bought one of those mics from the Apple store, plug it in, and now I just talk and it's great. Also, you can distribute the podcast wherever you want. Anchor does that for you. It can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, I think Stitcher, so many other places. And you can make money from the podcast. And yeah, you can start it right away with an advertisement like this. So make sure you download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It is everything you need to make podcasts in one place. Hey everybody, just putting a precursor before this episode. There is some language involved, a few, choice words that are, considered maybe swear words or words that are typically kind of deemed in, different fashions, but those words are used. It's a little bit more passionate of an episode. So if those things do offend you, then please, you do not have to listen, or make sure you have somebody near you that could be helpful in those situations. I just wanted to make sure I put a type of trigger warning before this episode begins. But I'm super excited to let you hear this episode. It's a really great one. Should have been out a little bit earlier, but honestly, just things have been very busy, and a lot of things have been going on, but I am doing my best and really trying to stay as consistent as possible with posting every week. Hopefully in these next few weeks we will get even better with that, but thank you so much for just listening and for any of the greatness that you all show, and just being amazing listeners and enjoyers of the podcast. So I will see you all later. You know how to contact me, the Forensics Guy, on pretty much every platform. So hit me up, especially TikTok, because my TikTok is growing and I'm super excited. Anyway, see you all later. Have a wonderful day and enjoy the episode. What's up, y'all? It's Dante, aka the Forensics Guy, and you are listening to the Forensics Experience, the podcast where we discuss topics in the speech and debate community with the world's most influential coaches, students, and alumni in the activity. Today, like any other day, except today's a little different. I am super, super, super honored to be sitting with an amazing coach, Deven Cooper. I can say so many things about him, but I'm going to let him get the opportunity to tell you all just what he is and what he does for the community. Go ahead, Deven.
Hello. So I am currently the director of debate at Cal State Long Beach. So pretty much coach college debate right now, but I also work with the Lambda, which is the LA Metro Debate League. And then in the summer, I pretty much at this moment have exclusively decided to work only for UDL camps, which are urban debate leagues.
Awesome.
So, yes.
Man, that's amazing. And I think that you are the perfect guest to talk about some of the topics that we're going to talk about. I give some type of precursor to exactly what we're going to talk about, but I think we're going to end up switching a few from topic to topic for the most part. So I'll definitely let the audience get to just kind of listen in. And before we probably dive into some stuff that's going to be probably a little bit too serious, one of the first things that I've been thinking about recently that I would love to hear some opinions from some other coaches, especially you from, is I want to talk about the burden of speech and debate. Overall, I think, obviously we know speech and debate is an amazing activity, and it is doing some amazing things for some students. I mean, we can literally just look at famous people currently, from Oprah to Jim Belushi to people have been doing amazing things in speech and debate, and it's an awesome activity. But I think as times grow and times change, a lot of students are under a lot more pressure when it comes to speech and debate. And I can't specifically speak on what, Oprah may have been doing in her high school years with speech and debate, but I can say that in 2019 and when this episode comes out 2020, there's a lot more pressure on students to be the best at everything. Like if you want to get into Harvard, you got to do 4 sports, 9 extracurricular activities, get a 4.7 GPA, and all of this, and it's so much. And I think that makes a lot of students try so hard to do this activity, and to do it so well does take a lot of time. And I want to ask you, like, are you seeing that same thing, especially with your current demographic of students that you're working with, which would be college students? Is this an activity that you think people are putting too much time into, or should they really work on like balancing that time better? What's your take on that?
To be honest, I think like uh I'm going to start with the high school level
Okay.
first. So I kind of think that when I debated in high school, it was mostly exclusively in the UDL. So we didn't really go to a lot of national tournaments. Like I didn't even know what TOC was, a Tournament of Champions,
Yeah.
when I was in high school. But what I do know is that like I put in a lot of time because I felt that it was something that was going to make my life better and something that I learned so much from. And like, the people that were around me when I was in high school that were college debaters told me about all the benefits that it would do for you when you get to college. You already know some of the topics and you take classes on stuff that really interests you. So I think that like, in some senses, when these kids are going to a lot of the national tournaments, I really feel like it is taking a lot of time, right, from their lives. But I
Yeah.
do think that that time is often very useful for them in the future, especially when we talk about and deal with race relations. It is a good
Yes.
introduction for them to understand how the microcosm of debate will be definitely what they face in the world. But in the world, you don't really have a judge that can say you won or you lost, and that you mostly will take a lot of losses in life, because there's not always going to be a person who's an intermediary in that level. But I do think that a lot of the skills and the ability to learn about different topics, are definitely things that will make people better humans as they get older. And I do think, the community does come at like some opportunity cost. Like if you want to do, this sport at the highest levels, you probably can't do other things, right? Like you
True.
maybe can't do sports. You probably can't, spend enormous amounts of time with family and friends as much as you want to, especially if they're not in debate, because, that's kind of the demand of it. Like I know that I was only in a couple of other activities when I was in high school, but they weren't as high demand as debate. Like specifically, I was in Future Teachers of America, or FTA, and I feel like
Okay.
that was something that helped me. I didn't really think I was going to become a teacher, but it did help me in the future. Now, and when it comes to college debate, in some ways, I often think that a little bit recycled with a lot of the arguments that exist. So
Okay.
I can't speak to every facet of the community itself, but I do think that there, at some levels, on both sides, when it comes, not both sides, but like multiple sides, when it comes to people that want to do critical arguments or straight up arguments or performance arguments, a lot of those arguments are starting to become a little bit recycled and not as new as
Yes.
they should be. But I think that that comes from people not investing that amount of brain power and effort into doing the craft, because a lot of people at the end of the day will see this as a game, right? And
Yes.
they
True.
think they're going to play the game in the way that is most beneficial to us and that will get us wins. And I feel like when me and my department debated in college, it wasn't necessarily always about winning, because like we definitely lost a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. I mean, because people like to just jump to like, oh, but y'all won CETA, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, that was a whole journey before we got there. And it was a lot of reading, a lot of work that we had to do, because we were taking losses on similar arguments that we were doing. So I think that people need to put more time in the craft of college debate to be more innovative and to change and have more difference and have a diversity of arguments, as opposed to like just going with what everybody else is saying and just making minor tweaks to it.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
you
That
know,
ma-
I mean,
that
there are some debaters that are changing and doing a lot more innovative things. Not to say they're not, but you know, sometimes when you start to see like policy to people, like straight up people do their AFs, they usually are doing the same fucking AF with different advantages, but the same AF. So it's just like, this boring, boring, boring.
that that totally makes sense. Okay. Definite. I can 100% understand that. Um, yeah, that's okay. Good answer there. I think now I think it's a good time to kind of go into the next part of what I wanted to talk about, especially because you already went to it. And I mean, it's innate for us, like as both being black speech and debaters, coaches and stuff like that. We got to talk about the elephant in the room, specifically that black elephant in the room, and it's about race. And it's an interesting question because there are a ton of people that are like, hey, it's 2020, racism doesn't exist anymore. Like, you guys don't have to, struggle with this and things of that nature. But I think that, especially when you look at certain microcosms of, different things like speech and debate being its own little micro community there, what, like, we still see so much like prejudices and racism, racist things, I guess, that happen within the community. And I think that I have this conversation a decent amount because I'm always trying to figure out what we can do to change the community. And that's such a struggle because I don't think that there's a truly easy fix, but I really want to come to that conclusion. Like, I guess I'm interested in hearing your opinion about, like, do you think that there is a way for us to, like, what's the best way for us, like, by next year to have racism prejudices fixed? Like, it doesn't have to be 100%, but what do you think that there's a way to make that happen in that amount of time?
To like change the race relations or people just being like racist in debate.
I guess I would say like
You
I would
know,
say more focus
I'm
on the people being racist in debate. Like, how can we like
oh
change
shit.
that?
Well,
And
I honestly I'm taking a little bit more of a pessimist stance these days, but more so
fair.
situational pessimism because I feel like there are people that you can reach and that you can change the truth of how they view the world, but there are some people that you just can't. And that
Yeah.
spending a lot of time trying to change them is not something that, the burden of black and brown folks should necessarily have to have, or just people in color in general. But
That's a
it's
good
just
point.
like, for me, I like that it just happens. And then like specifically when I look at another microcosm of the bigger, larger society, as in like the gay community, like
Yeah.
they're hella racist, like in so many ways. And it's just like you would think that like, oh, like since you are from an aggrieved community, that you probably would not like be like racist against black folks or be so anti-black. But the problem is that they actually are, and they're fine with saying it, and they think that they can level and boil it down to like, well, it's just a matter of preference that I
Yeah.
choose to not engage with or be around or sexually engage with black people. And it's just like, that's racist. And I don't really know why you think that's okay. And then there's other people that try to justify it. But as long as you're not flat out saying, oh, you a nigga, like, then that's like,
Yeah.
oh, it's not racist. But the moment people want to point to extreme examples of like very like direct, like confrontational forms of racism, but they don't really understand that those are not the most like common anymore post like the fucking 70s. Like,
True.
it's just like a lot of this stuff has become subtle. It has become ways in which people can say things without saying them. And it's just like, come on, like y'all have to think about like that this stuff is real. And people like to gaslight folks that want to call out racism and say, oh, that's just all in your head. Oh, you're just really aggressive. You're just really like angry. And it's just like, yo, like you can't really sit up and tell people that their experiences are just not true when they live them
Exactly.
every day. Like,
That's that's such a good point. And I mean, I feel like that's a hopefully a good reminder to even the audience. I feel like like no matter who you are, I think we all accidentally at times get caught up in that. Whether we're talking about, like somebody who's different than you in some way, we forget that like people have these, like even if it's an anecdotal experience, it's still their experience. And like you as a person don't have any like true right to like negate their experience.
Yeah, I mean,
And
because some people, I mean, I feel sorry
no, go ahead,
that
please.
like some people think that, you know, they don't realize that in certain conditions, folks that exist in a certain social location are able to give permission to say when something is racist and when something is not. Like, this is kind of why, like, we see like people getting so uproared about like the Virginia shit that happened. What's
Yeah.
that? Charlottesville, because a white
Uh-huh.
woman died, right? But imagine if that was like a black person. Do you really think they would be like, oh my God, like this is so crazy, right? No, because it's
Yeah.
like all this stuff has been happening forever. And like it's just like all these instances of racism and way that white people try to do stuff that moves them into a more position of dominance or position of advantage. Like this stuff has been happening. And when people get caught, then it's just like, oh my God, like that's the whole stuff about like the admission scandals. Like, come on, do you really think that is new? That has been
Yeah.
here, and black people have been knowing that's been here. Like, and there's probably even some black people that have been paid to get some of their students in there. But like,
Oh yeah, true.
predominantly, I think the wealth that exists in this nation is mostly white people because of other institutions that have allowed them to get rich, like moonshine and other things of that nature. But like,
Yeah.
that's just a thing. And so I don't know. I just think that at the end of the day, I don't really think that racism will go away. I think that people, if we place it and we don't talk about it as much, it's going to grow. And we're still going to have anomalies and folks like Trump that are going to like incite people to,
Yeah. That's very true.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's such a good point. It's a I don't know. I guess we'll see in the future, but I do think overall, the greatest point really here is if we stop talking about it, it's going to grow. Like you can't stop talking about it because it's still not fixed. And at some point, we have to continue to have those conversations and try to find. I guess I guess to me, I guess the closest we can get to a utopia world is I guess people can still be racist, just not openly racist. I guess, like I mean, like
I mean,
I
to be
think that's
honest, I would much rather than be racist outwardly.
really,
Like, I just really would, because it's just like, I don't need you smiling in my face every day and you calling me a nigga behind my back. Like, I don't need that.
I guess that makes sense to me though. I'm always kind of the whole like ignorance is bliss. Like if I just see a smiling face, I'm like, great, yay! I know this person is good, and I never think about it again, you know. But that totally makes sense. That you don't want those people like smiling, faking,
Right, because
and
that's
then
the
they're
thing.
also yeah,
It's like, well, there was white people before Trump got elected. It was like, oh my God, I would never vote for him ever, never, never. But
yeah,
overwhelmingly, um, there's something that happened. And of course, given the secrecy and the way that we don't like force people to tell us who they vote for because we're in a democratic society, we will never know. There are some people that were secretly loving Trump, not going to his rallies, but donating money and
yep.
like voting. And it is like, oh no, I can't. I would never. Like, what? Like,
That
why
is
even act like that? Like, that's not even true.
that is so true. I just read this thing actually that was interesting to me. I mean, honestly, the biggest problem is probably the amount of people that vote. Like when I read this thing that said literally right now, if every single person from 18 to like 24, every single 18 to 24-year-old voted, we would easily change the scope of the elections, and it would, whichever way those 18 to 24-year-olds voted, that's exactly what we would be. Everybody else would have no say if
Well,
everybody else stayed the same, but the 18 to 24-year-olds all voted.
we probably got to get rid of the electoral college first. So I don't know.
Yeah, some gerrymandering and some other things.
Yeah,
um, like I'm glad we don't. Yeah, I'm glad we don't do that in other. I'm glad that the elections are so far the only thing I can really think of where the voting system is that bad. Um, but like kind of leading with that, looking at those racism and prejudices, I mean, I could totally spend all day and talk about a bunch of the situations in the past. I was very honored to, I think in November or October, I had Ernest Chomiki on, and we talked about African American students as well, and like what their like specific situations almost, like as a person who has also dealt with some things that I felt blatantly racist and prejudiced in speech and debate, like just to me myself, it's really interesting, seeing like I don't know if you had the opportunity to listen to that episode, but one of the things that really popped out was I was telling Ernest about how there was a situation literally where back in actually that was the year before, so I think the 2018 NSDA Nationals for Dramatic Interpretation. I think the finals was like 3 or 4 African American students, and there was a specific coach that like walked past and literally said something like I'm not this isn't verbatim, but it was very similar to along the lines of like man, if like my kids would have talked about their black struggle, if they would have been black, then they would have been able to get to the national stage and be that and stuff like that. And basically, and I know Ernest told me something that a student I think said something that was very similar to, and it's just like all of these people are like, well, now that it's 2019 and we have to be more accepting, the only pieces that are actually going to win nationals for stuff like DI, for example, is going to be the gay piece and the black piece, and the I'm a minority and I struggle piece. And I'm like, and oh, that's so upsetting to me.
But the thing is that about that is that like, but you got to think about who is the audience and who is listening to those pieces. Like that's something that is in them, because in a lot of cases, let's keep it real. Like some of these white people that are listening to speeches, oftentimes are like, I'm going to like rank this high in some instances because I feel a certain way about my white guilt. And that's like,
Yeah.
that's part of it,
That's also true.
and it's like, it's not to say that's the only thing, because some of them might have had an experience with certain things that are spoken about, but in a lot of ways, white people oftentimes want to alleviate their guilt by giving black and brown folks like shallow, lukewarm, hollow prizes that are meant to like symbolize something in good faith, and without actually changing the structure that has created that necessity for charity or good faith in the first place. And it's just like, that's kind of the problem here. It's like, I don't want your fucking pity. I want you to actually change the structures that make it harder for black folks to actually live in this world. Like, that's the thing.
That's so good. That's so good, because the amount of times that someone has said some crap to me like, dude, is it really like I never thought that was a real thing that people would say, but I've literally had at least 2 conversations in my lifetime where somebody was like, dude, you had a black president. Like, how is it still racist? And I'm just like, that is like the fact, and I am glad that Obama had the opportunity to be president. That's awesome. But like, Obama was basically the equivalent of like some kid going all the way to nationals because of their black piece, and it was like a white guilt kind of thing. Like that's like, I really feel that. Like I feel like a lot of people who voted for Obama was like, we need to get this black person in there because this is our opportunity to feel like we are giving back to their people. And like, and it's like, it's the equivalent of a pity award. And I'm like, no, don't give us a black president. Like, honestly, if you would have told me that racism and prejudices would have been fixed, but we didn't have a black president, I'd rather take that. I'd rather have some old white guy president, as long
Bernie.
as the
Bernie.
yeah, exactly, as long as the other stuff was fixed,
Maybe I really feel like maybe Lizzie might have a chance at that. I really, I don't know.
I honestly, I'm really interested right now because I haven't gotten a chance to look that much at Lizzie, but right now my main person is Yang, bro. Like I'm so hashtag Yang
Yeah,
Gang right
he's
now.
really idealist. Like I really love his idealism, but
Yeah,
I really don't think he has like a way to instrument a lot of those things he's saying. I mean, I think it's
that's
cool,
you're 100% right
and
about that.
I love it. I love it, and I feel like some of these Democrats need to just be like, we're gonna come to this agreement. Like once one of us gets it, all these people up here are just gonna be cabinet members. Like just leave it at that. Like
Yeah,
they're gonna make Kamala the attorney general. Okay, like
yeah.
that's what she want to be. I don't know, who is gonna get it, Biden or Warren, but I know it. But I don't trust Buttigieg. Nope.
That's
I already told
I,
you about that gay community and the white gays.
yep.
I can't trust him. I can't, because I feel like at the end of the day, he gonna fall back on that white shit, just like most gay white men do. Is that we fucking with you and your oppression insofar as we fucking you, and then we're gonna like move on when it's time to recenter our whiteness and how we've been victims. So I'm not bumping with Buttigieg at all. Nope, nope, nope.
Okay, to all my gay white coaches listening, please don't get too offended to turn off the podcast.
Yeah, they shouldn't get offended because they know what's up. Like they know that there's people in this community who are white gays who are not fucking with black people in that way. Like they have to know. Like they see it on the profiles, they see it in the spaces, they see like if you even look at like the circles in which a lot of white gay men are in, none of them really include black men except for that one light skinned man who is mixed, or that one or the one very dark skinned Dante or Lawrence or Andre, right? And Andre, he speaks so good, he speaks so proper. But I mean, and it's not to say that person is bad, but it's to say that like they take us in insofar as it like makes them feel comfortable, I guess.
No, that totally makes sense. When you said, as soon as you said that about the throw in Andre here, I thought about Obama, and like I remember, like I think it was I don't remember who I was having that conversation with, but basically it was like they were saying like, dude, if Obama even slightly messed up in his public speaking abilities, just a little bit, people would have automatically thrown him off and he might not have been president. Like, because the only way for the groups of people that accepted him to accept him was that he had to basically look like what people try to call a white person, proper and like speaking well and things of that nature. And the only way he would win is by being able to do that. I love that this also became a political podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna have to throw that.
We're in very political times, man.
I'm gonna have to throw that explicit sign on on this episode and be like, hey, have a little disclaimer like just letting you know there's gonna be some F-bombs thrown in, some stuff like that.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, it's
listen
not that,
with caution.
it's definitely not that I dislike any group of people. I just think that some people are a little bit, wearing the rose-colored glasses in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And they just not seeing it. And it's like when people like me like want to call it out, it's just like, oh my God, like you're so aggressive. Like, why are you talking about these things? It's like, because like some people don't have the verbal fluency, I guess, to say it so eloquently like you want it to be said, but also at the same time have a righteous indignation about it. Like, because I think that's what we need to have, So
yeah, I totally agree with that. That definitely makes a lot of sense. I'm gonna really quickly talk to the audience. Audience, I hope you've been enjoying the episode so far. I think we're actually going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors. So stay tuned. We will be right back. All right. We are back. I am still here with Deven Cooper. We are having some very interesting conversations about a lot of things. This episode definitely turned a lot, and I love it. As you all know, if you want to continue to stay in that conversation, I probably should have said that before, but if you want to join that conversation, feel free to leave a comment down below. on iTunes or Stitcher, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this podcast, or just DM me on Instagram or my TikTok at the Forensics Guy. I'm definitely having conversations in there too, so feel free to get at me. Now I want to look at some other specific things as we've been talking about the Black community. I think that's kind of been the big focus here, and just a few questions. So you were, as a student, you were a UDL student too, right?
Yes,
Your whole
Baltimore
life.
Urban
Okay,
Debate League. Yep.
awesome. And with that, I'm always interested to. I'm interested to see. I think the financial effects of that. So I don't like. I mean, what? I guess my best question here is: did you ever notice, like, as a UDL student, like, did you notice like any type of like, I guess, like financial disparity between like you and other students who were doing debate? Like were there
Yeah,
ever,
yeah.
you know what I'm
I mean,
saying?
I did, and I can definitely say that I was definitely one of the privileged kids, right? I mean,
Okay.
I mean, of course, I did grow up in Baltimore, which is, still in the hood, but like at the end of
Yeah.
the day, my mom still owned her home, right? And that's
Okay.
not something that, a lot of, people can necessarily have said during that time
Very true.
and older. And I didn't realize, that was a thing. Like, oh, people don't own their homes. But like, because I was just always brought up in the household, my mom, like, she struggled. My mom definitely was on Section 8 at a point in time in her life, and on welfare. But at the end of the day, like, worked hard at Johns Hopkins Hospital to get me all the things that I needed. And so, I didn't really see hardship, once I got to the high school age. Like, it
Okay.
definitely existed before, right? And I didn't know. And my mom recently tells me a lot of stuff about, what she had to go through. I mean, as I remember sometimes that I do remember eating a lot of what do you call it? Milk and what is it?
Wait, milk and
Milk, and I think it was it's something that I just got sick of it after a while. But I mean, I started to realize that was some of the go-to things that we had
the
to
struggle
eat.
foods.
Yes, right. But I didn't realize that, and so I think that was something that a lot of the students that I was debating with had that as a daily struggle, but I didn't really see it until, like, sometimes I would go home with some of them, or like I would realize that, like, oh, they don't really have a lot of the things that I have, and it's just like I had to think about that and be like, damn, like, this is weird.
That makes
Um,
sense.
yeah, and so I definitely can understand, like, the differences, and like when I work for some of these bigger schools, and I'm like, wow, these kids have what, and they do what, like
Yeah.
you're going to a school that's like $40,000. Like,
Yes.
at peak level, my mom made $40,000. Like, what?
I totally get that, and I mean, like, I'm not sure exactly how the demographics at your college are now, but like, it's very interesting to see, those, like, the differences of, what you grew up versus like sometimes the kids you're working with, like,
Hmm.
I like I was pretty confident even at the school that I was at last year. I was like, man, I'm pretty sure most of these kids make more money than I do in just their allowance. Um,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
so, um, and so yeah, it's a whole dynamic there that's very interesting to see. And I think that I'm I feel what you're saying in terms of that, like still, like, I kind of felt the privilege of like not necessarily being too mentally burdened, when I was a student doing speech and debate,
Hmm.
because our finances weren't there either. My mom was renting an apartment, stuff like that. But I don't think I ever like had to, like, I never. It
Oh
was
no,
never like
our parents are really good at hiding the
exactly.
oppression that we were living in.
It's pretty
Oh, big
amazing
time.
actually, because I feel like if that was me, I'd be having hearts to hearts with my 7-year-old child. Like, this is so hard.
Right, because they my grandparents on my father's side, and then like my mom particularly, were definitely good at concealing, like, things about the outside world and kept
Yeah.
me like really sheltered a lot, so where I wouldn't have to deal with certain things. But at the end of the day, I still saw them when I went to like my high school. I mean,
True.
I kind of went to one of the worst high schools in Baltimore, but I don't even think that is something that qualifies that school like it being worse. I just think that it was different, and there was a different demographic of students that were given certain things that they had to work with.
Yeah.
And if I lived in Baltimore and I say where I went to high school, people would be like, "Oh, you do what?" And it's just like that shouldn't be like the response. Like, because I mean, to be honest, like a lot of the students that, not a lot, but quite a few that I went to school with and that were years below me and above me, some of them are not alive or they're dead. I mean, they're in jail,
Yeah.
or they're not doing things that are the most productive, or some of them are strung out on drugs. And it's just like, I get why that would be a thing, but you know, when you don't have people investing in you and saying that you was kind, you was smart, you was important,
Yep.
right? That's not something that you start to think about, is that your self-worth starts to get wrapped up in you trying to get instant gratification. And then here comes social media like a year later, and that becomes a thing.
It's really interesting. I
I
think.
mean, no, MySpace was still there. I'm sorry, but then
Oh yeah,
Facebook and
back.
all that other
Yeah.
shit
Yeah.
came, and
Yeah.
Black Planet.
Yes, I remember. Oh
Oh, Black
man.
Planet.
I
Oh my
was I
God.
was never on Black Planet, but I don't know if you remember. I think it was seriously only in Milwaukee and Atlanta.
What?
It was this thing called hold on. The original name was Paxed, and then it changed to something called Blink, BLNK. And it
Oh,
was
I
a
don't
so
know.
it was just like it felt just like MySpace mixed with Facebook. And I'm so confident that the only people that knew about it were like Milwaukee and Atlanta. Like that is so weird, but
Probably, but I remember that when Black Planet came about.
uh-huh.
I mean, not when it came about because I don't remember, but I remember being on it. But
Yeah.
they also created Mi Gente, which was the Latinx version, and then they had
Yes.
Asian Avenue, which was the Asian version. I was like, oh my God, I can't.
uh
So,
like that automatically just reminds me of the episode. There was that, I don't know if you've seen the show Broad City, but there was that episode where they took the one girl Abby's drawings, and it was supposed to be for a commercial for a dating website. For It was called like whitesonly.com.
oh my God.
And it was so funny. It was the greatest thing
Yeah.
ever. Okay, but yeah, like I mean, it is really amazing like how great like our parents, grandparents, and things of that nature were able to hide that. And it made us, like even though we saw it in school and we, like other parents were hiding it too, we just went with the flow. Like it was like the
Hmm.
amount of times that I know, like even friends in high school that all had the Jordans and stuff, they were just like us, probably the same parents
Yeah,
who,
I ain't
you
never
know,
had Jordans until I was like 26.
I, I my first pair of Jordans were a pair of Jordans that I did I buy them? I literally think I bought them from my friend. Shout out
Hmm.
to Dane if he I haven't talked to him in years, but he was like the only white kid on our block, the only white kid on our block, and it was so funny because the one thing he did, I don't even know if he remembers this, but like his like Hanes t-shirts, like
Hmm.
the white t-shirts, like you'd wear them under your shirt or something. And he never wore it twice. He would wear it and throw it away.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. I remember
and
that.
I was like, what?
Or
Like that
sometimes
was
they had the white beaters or whatever they call them.
yeah,
A shirts, A
those
shirts.
yes, the A shirts. Like that was the moment where I was like, whoa, some people do got money. Like he was literally throwing away the
Hmm.
white shirts after. Like it was crazy. And man, it was like um I guess, but even with that, I saw like obviously a lot of friends who, are not alive right now. People that I paying homage to because I'm like, man, they were on their own paths and it was unfortunate. And I think that we can put that back to speech and debate. I mean, honestly, you could put anything in there, but obviously my love for speech and debate comes out. but students need to be introduced to something like speech and debate. And even if they don't love speech and debate, basketball, football, whatever, they need something because there came a point where I just got so tired of seeing, like young teens and things of that nature just dying by the hands of things like, violence and all types of stuff. And like,
It's true, but it's just like I oftentimes fear Black people coming to this space now, like in a lot of ways because of all the stuff that they have to deal with. And I feel like somebody who really predicted a lot of the issues and problems that Black people would face was this
okay,
article by Shelton K. Hill that he did
okay,
like in the early mid 90s, and he was talking about like how Eurocentric ways that people look at speech and also debate are hurdles that become, kind of burdens for Black people when they enter them. And so they like specifically, he talked about like in policy debate, that policy debate was very much so geared towards how white men perform themselves in certain spaces and how they talk about certain issues, right? How Black people
yeah,
talk about them a little differently. And he definitely was going in on speech when he was like the speech arena in itself models the public speaking classroom where Eurocentric ways of communicating are valued and oftentimes celebrated, especially when Black people do them so well. Right. And he was definitely
yes,
talking about like how Black people oftentimes have to code switch in order to be seen as not too hood or too preachy or too aggressive to their white opponents.
very true.
And it was just like, that's literally what is happening today. I see this shit played out. Right. And when I entered college, and I didn't really understand what that article was talking about, my freshman year of college, which is when I was exposed to it. But I was just like, what does he mean by this? And then like as I got older, I started to see like all this stuff where he was like, the white competitors will be surprised when Black competitors have a victory, or there will be backlash for the way that you speak about certain arguments. And I was just like, wow, this
Yeah,
is prophecy here.
that's some
And
1984 stuff.
yeah, but I also had the privilege to meet him
Oh,
like I think 2 years ago. I was so honored, and I didn't know, and I got so excited. I think you call it like fangirl or whatever. I
yeah,
fangirled out over Shelton Cahill, and I was just like, man, we use your arguments like so much when we were debating in college, and it's just like he was just right. He was just right about everything he wrote in that article, and it was just like crazy to see like that stuff still happening today, right? And how
yeah,
speech kids are definitely talking about how they have to talk about certain pieces, or they have to speak in a certain way, or they have to dress in a certain way so they're not seen as like too hypersexual or too like, too aggressive in certain ways and not wearing certain colors. Like, and I'm just like, wow, this is intense.
that is really interesting. Especially from the like the idea of like I guess clothing in speech and debate. I guess there's a few avenues I can go down to talk about, but I don't fully know where we need to stand on the whole idea of like what
Like
constitutes this.
professionalism.
Yes, like professionalism.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, I just think that like the difference between speech, speech in college is very different than speech in high school, and
yeah,
debate in high school is very different from debate in college, because in some areas where you have the local leagues that are doing policy debate, they definitely want these kids to dress up and to wear certain things, and it's just like oftentimes they don't understand that some of these kids that actually want to do speech and debate are not, they don't have the money to get those things all the time, right?
it's
And
true.
it's just like, well, if you want them to wear that shit, won't you buy it? Like buy it for them and have them and support them. And I feel like even, and I hate to say this, but like when I was at Fresno and I was looking at these kids and like trying to like figure out ways to help them and make them better, I got met with a lot of backlash from the people who are running the local league. And I was just
Yeah,
like frustrated because I'm just like, y'all not handling these Black kids well. Like y'all just like putting them out here looking all crazy and saying stuff that, is not relating to their experiences. And and there was one Black kid that reached out to me, which is Skylar Harris. Sorry to name drop, but
No,
you
go
know,
ahead.
but and I coached them, and so it was a wonderful experience for me that somebody actually like saw my coaching to be valid in the area because they definitely suppressed it and definitely treated me
Wow.
like I was like the redheaded stepchild, or more so this black dude that was coming to like kill their women or something. I don't
Yeah.
know, but I was just like, come on. So, and I definitely see it, and I was like, and the code switching thing is very much so real. Is that we can't say the things that we want to say, but at the same time, some white people feel very comfortable in saying, "Oh, what's up, yo?" or "Hi, yo," or "Hi, brother." Like, what? Or why are you talking to
Yeah.
me like that? As if I talk that way. I mean, not to say it's bad to talk that way, but it's just like, why do you think that you get to talk to me like that?
That's
Like,
that. No,
you
that's all,
don't.
that's really interesting. I think
But that exists in and out of debate. Like
true.
I just can imagine. Like sometimes when I go to the counter, they be like, "Hello, brother." I'm like, "Why are you saying bro? Why are you saying brother like that?" Number one,
He started
uh,
raising his fist. He's like, "We're all one, brother."
right. I'm just like, this is crazy right now. So,
that is great. I think I think that gives. I'm totally going to obviously shamelessly promote. That probably will end up being the advertisement too, anyway, in the middle of the sponsored video thing here. But a lot of people know about. I mean, at the time you're listening to this podcast, it will be out. So for those who know, I'm creating an online speech and debate league for students. And it's going to be very interesting for speech kids. They'll be able to submit videos through an online platform, and be able to be judged based off of how they compete for speech and debate. So I think the biggest thing that I'm looking for, which is kind of what we talked about a tiny bit, but I really want some very skilled judges. Like, no offense, I love that parents are willing to volunteer to help out at tournaments and things of that nature. But I really want to create this as a platform to make sure that every student can just do speech and debate and not have to worry about like the weird intricacies of like, did I really reach this like 45-year-old mom judge with 6 kids in a Tesla van? And like, did it work out in the right way? I want
mhm.
like truly, truly trained judges, and I'm making sure that I'm able to do that. So obviously, when you do see this and you're listening to this episode, if this is the first episode you listen to, then definitely go out and check it out. The online speech and debate league. Um, it's gonna be really interesting because I want to change a lot of the scopes for the way we judge the judges that I have. I want a very, very diverse pool of judges, and I want a lot of people to be a lot more conscious in the way that they judge too, which is really great because I feel like I can have the final say on that now and make it so that like we can make everything feel almost as equitable as possible. So I'm definitely trying to change the scope of speech and debate for all. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. um, but I guess my last question is, if there was one thing that you could do right now, like if there was one thing that could change right now to change the activity for the future, what's the one thing that needs to change like tomorrow that you think will change speech and debate for the better for the rest of our lives?
Mm, that's a tough one. I I can't really locate that which would change it the most, but I mean, to be honest, I think that it all is about the adults in a sense, like how they
Okay.
treat children and students that are trying to come to their growth and finding their truth about how they want to express themselves in the world. So like a lot of these local leagues,
Yeah.
i.e. like CHASA, they need to be a little bit more open-minded to the way that children want to exist when it comes to speech and debate. I mean, I
Yeah.
also think that even in UDLs, the way that people see those children, it should not just be about, oh, we need to teach them how to read. It should be about trying to harness their competitive ability to make, themselves known in ways that they want to, not just to
That's a
be like,
good point.
I just think that those things need to change the way that the adults start to garner how these children exist. Um, and so I think that you can change how uh, a lot of these adults treat children and see them, then that will also ultimately make them better adults because they have to grow up feeling like they joined this activity and they already felt suppressed and felt ignorant to like a lot of the things that exist.
Yeah.
And for me, I didn't know what a K was until I was like a senior in high school.
I still barely know.
Right, but in that sense, people are still kind of like, fuck the K. And it's like, come on, man. Like, these are
Yeah.
regular arguments. People make them in
Yeah.
society all the time, and they're not seen as a K.
True. I can see that. That's a good point. I think changing that could potentially change things for the better in the future. Um, I have, I like what you said a little bit about like chess and some other things. I have seen. I'm actually pretty impressed. Like
Oh,
not
but
every
believe me,
single league.
it's not just chess. It's all the
Yeah, it's
local
not.
leagues. I just don't know the name of all of them.
Exactly.
So,
That's what I was gonna say though. Like I have seen some try to do some more things that are trying to be more open. I mean, NSDA is still doing some really great stuff. We all know, like in the grand scheme of things, you can't get it all right, but you have to try. And I definitely can give props to a lot of little orgs for trying, but some definitely have to step their game up, move a little bit faster, and get with the times. So we shall, see what happens with that. To everyone listening, I hope you really, really, really enjoyed the episode. It's been a great one. It's been a very, very interesting one. And I am so once again honored to have Deven on. Thank you so much, Deven, for being on and kind of sharing your insight and giving us your vision into speech and debate and how it looks for a lot of different things in a lot of different ways for people.
oh,
Um,
thank
so
you for having
uh,
me.
yeah, of course. It's an honor. So for everybody listening, as usual, make sure you share this episode. Share it everywhere. Give it 5 stars on iTunes, Stitcher. iTunes is probably the most important, but all of the places that you listen to podcasts, give it 5 stars if you like it. And I hope you all continue to listen. And that's pretty much it. I'm pretty bad at outros like always, like I have been for the last 99 episodes. But I hope you all have a great day and I will talk to y'all later. Peace out.